Hey guys, it's Faye from SolarFlow, and I am back with an all-new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil psychic energy read into the social media platform Facebook and its founder, Mark Zuckerberg. We are not just going to be exploring the true meaning and purpose of Facebook because, surprise, surprise, it is not just a social media platform. We are also going to be looking into the energy of Mark Zuckerberg himself and why to some he has appeared to be rather robotic, and some have even said reptilian. This and so much more. So if that sounds good to you, please stick around. Now, before we get into the psychic energy reading portion, I'm going to start by sharing some 3D information about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. So here we go. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg, who was born on May 14th, 1984, is an American businessman who co-founded the social media service Facebook and its parent company Meta Platforms, of which he is the chairman, the CEO, and the controlling shareholder. He has been the subject of multiple lawsuits regarding the creation and ownership of the website, as well as user privacy. He attended Harvard University, which he dropped out of when he launched Facebook in 2004. Now, one of the early and notable lawsuits that he had been involved with included fellow Harvard students who accused Mark Zuckerberg of intentionally making them believe he would help them build a Harvard social networking website, which he did not develop. Instead, he had developed Facebook, which led them to believe that Mark Zuckerberg had stolen their idea when he created Facebook. So they had filed a lawsuit in 2004. And while the first lawsuit was dismissed on a technicality, it was later refiled, and ultimately the case had settled in 2008 when Facebook agreed to transfer 1.2 million shares to them and agreed to pay them $20 million in cash. Mark Zuckerberg took Facebook public in 2012, and he became the world's youngest self-made billionaire. Now, Facebook is the world's most popular social media platform with over 3 billion active monthly users. But that is not all, because Meta does not only own Facebook, because in 2012, they also purchased the social media app Instagram, which has over 1 billion worldwide users. They also purchased Threads and WhatsApp. Now, because Facebook is a publicly traded company, the price for a single solo stock as of January 2025 is $690.74. Now, Meta Platforms itself has a net asset estimated net worth of $164.5 billion. Mark Zuckerberg himself has an estimated net worth of $212.8 billion. In 2012, he married his long-term girlfriend, Priscilla Chan, and they have 3 kids together. Now, that concludes the 3D information share on Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. We are now going to be getting into the energy reading portion on him. So here we go. As soon as I had connected to Mark Zuckerberg's energy, he was shown to me as having a weak and incomplete sense of self. This is in part due to the fact that not all of his chakras are online, so to say, and operational. Don't worry if you don't know what chakras are, I will explain to you what they are. But for Mark Zuckerberg himself, let's say that only 4 of his 7 chakras are online and operational. So his first and second are, and then there is a complete gap and delineation of the next three before you get to the next two that work again, which is his third eye and his crown chakra. So this leads him to feel like he is sometimes having a sort of out of body experience, but not where he's physically out of his body, but where he feels like he is out of himself and he cannot directly relate to the world. And he also feels energetically like he's in limbo, or a little bit like he's in energetic freefall. Now, if you're wondering what are the chakras, I will tell you. They are meridian points that reside in every single person's body. There are 7 of them, and they start at the base of somebody's spine and they work their way up to the crown of the head. They are meridian points. They hold energy and they also control the flow of energy into them and through them. They are also located at specific points that are also going to directly correlate with a energy in the body, as well as a fundamental representation of something out in the 3-dimensional world as well. You can also look at the meridian points and the chakras as if you are on a road and you can see the next 7 lights ahead of you. If there's a really, really long red light, it's going to slow down the flow of traffic. But just because there's a really long red light, it doesn't mean you stay there for the rest of your life. No, it just means it slows down the flow of traffic. But now we're going to take traffic and we're going to replace it with energy in the body. And now, in addition to that, we're not going to say it's a really, really long red light. We're going to say it's where there is road work that is done. So the energy has to completely be divested and diverged around the road work so somebody can get from point A to point B. We're going to take it even a step further, and we're going to say it's not where there's traffic, it's not where there's road work, where the road is completely shut down. Because that is what the experience is like for Mark Zuckerberg. Because his first 2 chakras are operational, and then there's a complete delineation and gap in the energy that flows through him until you get to his third eye and his crown chakra. Another way of looking at this would be to say it's somebody lives in a really big house. Because the house is so big, one internet router is not enough. So they need to have 7 different and unique and distinct routers to provide internet coverage for the entirety of the house. But we're going to say that only 4 of the internet routers actually work and the other 3 do not. So the person might have to be literally like on their phone walking around the house until they can connect to a router that actually will give them internet service. But imagine that's the way somebody feels within themselves. Like they're constantly trying to walk around to find where they can connect to their own internal energy. Because that's Mark Zuckerberg. He is in energetic limbo and sometimes even feels like he is in energetic freefall within himself. Now, him feeling that way is going to directly influence the way in which he shows up in the world. And the way in which he's going to show up to other people. Because he sometimes does not even feel like he knows himself or like he has access to his own self, and he feels like he has an island upon himself. And he will feel this way even if he is in a room full of other people. Even if he is in a room full of hundreds of other people, he still feels like he is an island upon himself. So that is in part due to the fact that some of his chakras are not online and are not operational, but it is also due in part to the fact that he is so smart. And yes, he knows it, but not in an arrogant way. Because for him, it more felt akin to growing up in a world where he was the only person that saw the world in color, but everybody else saw the world in black and white, and he knew it. So this further compounded the feeling of him feeling as if he was an island upon himself. But it's not about color, it was about intelligence, because he grew up feeling as if, in a non-arrogant way, he knew he was the smartest person. And the frustration that he would experience when interacting with other people, or a room full of other people, or hundreds of other people, and feeling as if they were not as intelligent as he was. Because again, from his point of view, it's like he was seeing the world in color and everybody else in the world was seeing it only in black and white. So, but again, not color, intelligence. So because he was so incredibly intelligent, and he did excel in school, academic locations were really the one place that he felt completely at ease within himself. However, that did not necessarily make him popular. So he grew up being always a little bit socially awkward and robotic in social settings. So this was a large compounding issue that fed itself akin to, example, a snake eating its own tail. It's a self-contained cycle and system for Mark Zuckerberg. Because he was smart and not popular, and he only felt comfortable in academic settings, he remained unpopular and he did not really develop socially. In addition to the fact that he always knew that he was smarter than everybody else, and he stopped looking for other similarly leveled, intelligent people. And he could not fully even operate and feel like he was fully embodied in his own sense of self and sense of identity and energy. So for him, this kind of became his modus operandi. This was like his default setting in the way in which he experienced his place in the world. He knew that he was a little bit socially awkward. He knew in a non-arrogant way that he was usually going to be the smartest person in the room. So for him to have any level of feeling like he was part of a university culture, he kind of had to pave his own way and do things a little bit differently. Because he was not going to be like the jock that was popular. He was not going to be like, the star of the football team. He was not even like, the good-looking guy on campus. He was the geeky, nerdy guy. So this led to him inventing something called Face Smash at the University of Harvard, because this was the only way that he could be part of university culture, but it was from the safety and security of his own dorm room. So he was part of it, but he was also safely at a distance removed from it because he was the inventor and the creator of it. But what was it? It was a website where students could vote and rate the co-eds in terms of their physical appearance. But it was for the co-eds, the pretty girls on campus. So it was designed for the kids on campus to vote and rate the other attractive kids on campus. So it was the only way that he could feel like he was part of the campus culture, but again, he was separately and distinctly removed from it, an island upon himself. So, but it was also a way of him lording over them, because even though he had developed it and designed it specifically for the other co-eds to participate in it, him being the developer of it, it was as if he was the arbiter of it, even though it was the other students that were using it and voting on it. And at that time, for a not popular but smart kid, that was really enough for him, at least at that time. Because not every smart and geeky kid will have the interest in rebranding themselves a la a Jeff Bezos. because Jeff Bezos is probably arguably the other most well-known platform developer, right? So he's like the shopping version of what Mark Zuckerberg is to Facebook is what Jeff Bezos is to Amazon. But whereas Mark Zuckerberg married Priscilla Chan, his long-term girlfriend, in 2012 and remains married to her, Jeff Bezos divorced his first wife, did not care how much the divorce was going to cost him, because he's like, I have more money than fucking God. I don't need the other half of my assets. I can't spend the money that I have in this lifetime. So he could live out his fantasy with his overly injected girlfriend. I think her name is Lauren Sanchez. But Mark Zuckerberg is not really the type to do that. Because again, he sees the world in terms of color and everybody else sees it like it's black and white. So for Mark Zuckerberg, it was rather enough just to find Priscilla Chan, who would be, let's say, like the equivalent of somebody that was just colorblind. They see the world mostly in color, except not all color. So again, for Mark Zuckerberg, who's an island all upon himself, to find one person that he felt he could inhabit his island with, it was enough to him. And because he has lost to himself, that has in fact kept him humble in many ways. And it's also what in fact has kept him married for the amount of time that he has been. It was enough to find Priscilla Chan, who was only colorblind, and marry her and stay married to her. Now, this is also going to explain his feeling of separateness from his own sense of self and identity, and feeling as if he is an island upon himself, is going to explain why he has suppressed information, or maybe not specifically him, but why Facebook did, why they suppressed information during the 2020 election. Because what did they do? They suppressed information on Hunter Biden's laptop. Hunter Biden is the son of the former United States President, Joe Biden, who was running against Donald Trump in 2020. So there was the suppression of information that could have been detrimental to Joe Biden. And Mark Zuckerberg recently was on the Joe Rogan show, and he had claimed that the United States FBI had pressured him into suppressing the information on the Hunter Biden laptop. This is due to the fact that Mark Zuckerberg, not having access to all of his chakras and his own internal energy, means that he can be very easily influenced. So again, I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of like apply it to the example I had given you about like internet routers. So big ass house, somebody only has access to 4 out of the 7 routers. That means they're only going to be picking up about 50% of the information. But depending on what are the websites that they are connecting to, that is going to determine the information that they are directly picking up on. So because, according to Mark Zuckerberg, the FBI was pressuring him, that would be the equivalent of the information those routers that were online were picking up on. It was the suppression of the information, because he can be easily influenced. He only can get online with half of his routers. So on an information sharing level, and no, I'm not giving him a pass, but strictly on an information sharing level, he can really only at one time conceptually share one side of the story. This is also going to explain why they utilized fact checkers to filter out the so-called misinformation and disinformation of information that would directly go against the approved narrative pertaining to C-19. Half of the chakras were working. Half of the routers were working. That means because he can be easily influenced, he's only on an information level going to share half of the information. But it's the information that is approved at that time to be shared because, again, he's easily influenced. I got to drive the point home. I'm trying really hard to drive the point home, actually. Now, he was also at this point shown to me kind of like, if you will, the flag that you would see at a heliport. And even if, like, I've never personally been to a heliport, and even if you yourself have not personally ever been to a heliport, there is a flag there. It is showing the direction that the wind is blowing. So that way, when the helicopter pilot is coming in to land the helicopter, he can take into account the influence of the wind on the helicopter. But he needs to know that based on the direction that the flag is actually pointing to indicate the influence of the wind. So Mark Zuckerberg was shown to me as being akin to a flag that would be at a heliport, where there is the strong influence of the wind that's going to direct the direction his own internal compass and flag is pointed at. This is he within himself, because he does not have a strong sense of self, nor does he have a strong sense of opinions or beliefs. This then, therefore, has made him a wonderful tool, in case you were wondering, of the cabal. Because again, you don't get to have $212 billion estimated net worth unless you're in the club. Because Mark Zuckerberg, not having a strong sense of self, being akin to his flag being directed whatever direction the wind is flowing, not having strong opinions nor beliefs within himself, he is not somebody that would ever color outside of the lines or even questioning coloring outside of the lines. He would never be unruly. He would always do as he was told, because by doing it, he would feel as if he was accepted and as if he was a part of something. As in, I don't need all of my internet routers to work because let's say I can connect to my neighbor's router. So then it doesn't matter if all of my routers work, I could connect to a different router. So I can still get online, but let's say the router that you connect to is also going to influence you. That's Mark Zuckerberg. Easily influenced when he can feel like he is a part of something, not a part as in separate, because that's his internal default setting, but as in feeling as if he is connected to something else. As in meeting all of these other people and suddenly realizing, there's a whole other group of people out there. They see the world in color too. And feeling like as if he was a part of that. Because this is what happened to Mark Zuckerberg when he was in the University of Harvard. Not as in he felt like he found his people with the other students. No. As in, why did he drop out of Harvard to continue the creation of Facebook? Because, as I have previously shared with you, exclusive elite universities serve primarily the club. They do not exist for us or to educate us. They actually, in fact, exist for the club, for the cabal. Because they hold space, as in, not like what a therapist holds space, or like if you get together with your girlfriend and you're holding space for them to share, not that kind of space. They hold a certain number of seats available for students in the incoming freshman year that are reserved exclusively for kids in the club. they hold space for club members' kids to go. So that way these kids have the appearance of educational pedigree for whatever they go on to do thereafter. Because it is not a coincidence that here in the United States, the majority of the United States presidents have all been from exclusive universities, Harvard or Yale. It is also not a coincidence that a great number of them are either Freemasons, because a third of them are, and it's also not a coincidence that former United States presidents were also members of secret university clubs such as the Skull and Crossbones. It's not a coincidence. Just like it's not a coincidence that they go to the exclusive universities in the first place. Now, it was also shown to me that there was a tell about this, because maybe you yourself remember there was a scandal from a few years ago where it was found out that celebrities were paying off the athletic department of top-tier universities to accept their kids into the athletic program, even though their kids were not even athletes. This is a true story. This happened a couple of years ago. What's her name from the TV show Desperate Housewives? She even went to jail. I don't remember her name, not a surprise. But one of the actresses that was on the show Desperate Housewives was found out to have bribed or attempted to have bribed the athletic department of, I believe it was the University of Southern California, to get her daughter like onto the rowing team, even though her daughter was not a rower. But it was done because that was the only way to get her daughter into a top-tier university, because her daughter didn't have the grades to get into this top-tier university otherwise. So this was a tell on a micro scale and not the macro scale of how it applies to all of the elite universities. Because these celebrities, and she wasn't the only one, but because these celebrities' kids were not smart enough to get into that university otherwise, that is why the parent was attempting to bribe the head of the athletic department to accept them into the athletic department. Because it was all they could do to get them in. Because the kid couldn't get in on their own merit. But this was happening with celebrities and not elites. And it was also happening not with the elite universities. Again, like, I'm not knocking University of Southern California. It's a good school, but it's not like Harvard or Yale League. So the truly elite universities do exist primarily for the elites as a space, first and foremost, where they can send their kids, as the appearance of them being a so-called intellectual elite. But it is also a location where they can fraternize and they do not have to slum it with the rest of us. Now, these schools really do charge an exorbitant tuition. So because the tuition annually is, I think some schools like $75,000, it would certainly be a shame if they could not capitalize on the high tuition that they charged, especially if there were mere mortals that could afford it. So it's not to say that the exclusive and elite universities only admit the kids of club members or kids of the cabal. No. It's just to say that those kids are automatically admitted. They probably do not even have to fill out an application. Their SAT scores probably do not even matter. That's for the mere mortals that actually want to attend Harvard. For them, there's a space held just for them so they can go there. But because, as we know, we live in a reflection of the cabal, and everything they touch, they corrupt and they pervert, that has very much been the case with the exclusive and elite universities as well. because for the mere mortals that do go there, this is used as grounds to identify the best and the brightest of us, as in the best and the brightest of people that are not in the club. Why would they want to identify them? So that way, once they know who they are, they can classify them into two different and distinct classifications. There's those that can be corrupted, knowingly or unknowingly, and then there are the ones that have integrity and are uncorruptible. The ones that are corruptible, again, knowingly or unknowingly, because certainly not all of them knowingly have been corrupted, but in the case of them, they, upon their graduation from Harvard or Yale, are recruited into a ridiculously high-paying job that they would be a complete and absolute fool not to accept. And that job then, therefore, locks them down for life, and they are owned and they are operated, even if it's unknowingly. And if it's unknowingly, it's because they're going to be recruited into a job where there is so much bureaucratic red tape that they actually cannot do anything, or they can get it done. Because there's so many channels that they have to go through before they can try to actually get anything done. And then they're told that this is just the way it is. Those are the ones that are unknowingly corrupted, because they're just owned and operated, and they're locked down into a job where they can't make a positive contribution to the world. And some of them are very knowingly corrupted as well. Because, as I remind you, everything is a vibrational match. Like attracts like. So if somebody is a person that is pursuing an education in a so-called elite school, that is going to make them a vibrational match for a corresponding element that exists out in the world, such as a high-paying job. There is nobody that is going to go to Harvard and then they're going to end up getting a job like working in McDonald's for, minimum wage. It doesn't work that way. Like attracts like. So these people will get locked down unknowingly in jobs where there is bureaucratic red tape, and they will live in that system for fucking ever. And they are told this is just the way that things are done. This is similar to how medical schools work. You take the most highly empathic people that actually want to make a difference in the world, and they want to help people. And what do you do in modern Western medical schools? They are trained to be little more than a human scriptwriter who does not diagnose anything as much as diagnosing the medication to prescribe based on a certain symptom set. Does them prescribing the medication eradicate the underlying cause? No. All it does is shut down the body's warning system that something is in fact wrong. So that way the patient can go back to work and go back to feeding the matrix. That is how highly empathic people's desires to help people has been corrupted and perverted against them with Western medicine. So anyone that goes to an elite university will then therefore go on to acquire work where they will be incredibly well compensated. Like attracts like. But most likely those will be jobs where they are not actually allowed to do good in the world or to make a positive contribution to the rest of us. Because again, everything the cabal touches is perverted and corrupted. Exclusive universities included, medical schools included. But what about those people that are uncorruptible? Because they're identified as well. And if you cannot knowingly or unknowingly corrupt them by putting them into a job where they can't get anything done, what do they do to those people? They break them. A la Ted Kaczynski. Because Ted Kaczynski, he went to Harvard too. And he's known as the Unabomber. I have an excellent video that I have done on Ted Kaczynski. If you have not yet seen it, I highly recommend, when you are done watching this video, going back and watching it. It is linked down below. But it is going to give you incredible insight into the way, the methodology, the minutia of what was done to Ted Kaczynski, because he was an idealistic young man who was uncorruptible. So because they couldn't corrupt him, they had to break him. Because to the other that have been identified as the best and the brightest, that have also shown an aptitude that they cannot be bought, they cannot be owned, and they are not corruptible, they break them. A la Ted Kaczynski. But Mark Zuckerberg, he was no Ted Kaczynski. That is why Mark Zuckerberg makes an excellent simpering tool that would do as he was told, never make a fuss, color within the lines. And thus, when he was identified by one of the alphabet agencies here in the United States, he was approached when he was a student at Harvard University. Because that's what they do at the exclusive universities. They identify the best and the brightest, and then they corrupt them, knowingly or unknowingly, or they break them. But because Mark Zuckerberg is so easily influenced, and he is bright in a humble and not egotistical way, and he wanted more than anything to feel as if he belonged, he was an excellent simpering tool of the cabal. So when he was in Harvard University, he was approached and made a deal that he couldn't, or frankly, never would, refuse. So if you've ever wondered why he dropped out, that's why. He was made a deal he wouldn't or couldn't refuse. It's not like he was told, if you don't do this, we're gonna unalive you. No, that's not what I mean by couldn't. Meaning the deal was just so juicy and enticing to him. Like, oh my goodness, there's all of these people. They see the world in color too. They appreciate me and my innate and natural intelligence. They will allow me to be part of this exclusive club, and I can create. And I feel like I belong. I have found my people. That's why he dropped out of Harvard, because he didn't feel that with the other students. But he did feel it when he was approached by the alphabet agency. Thus, Facebook was born. But what purpose does Facebook really serve? Like, is it just really designed for us to connect and share like our vacation photos? No. Facebook was designed with the intention of getting people to self-report on themselves. To basically have people do the job that the alphabet agency or the equivalent of the alphabet agency in their particular country would actually do. Because I've done an exclusive members video on the CIA and the FBI. If you're not yet a member, you might want to consider joining it just so you can watch that video and certainly the other like 60 other exclusive videos that are on there. But it's to get the citizens of a country to self-report on themselves. Because Facebook exists not for us the people, but for the alphabet agencies, or whatever the equivalent of the alphabet agency would be in your country. It is to get people to self-report because it is a data mining platform where people will self-report on themselves. People are not only going to share who their friends are, because you can have friend requests, right? They're not only going to share who their family is, so people are creating their own family trees. They are also going to be sharing what their likes and their dislikes are, what their food preferences are, where they like to vacation, where they don't go to vacation, and so much more. So whereas the internet services are accumulating information on us, like what are all of our search engines, like what are we going to look at when we're online? What are we looking to buy? What grocery store are we looking to go to? What countries are we researching that we want a vacation because they're building out a character profile? That's exactly what Facebook does. But it's not where they're accessing our search engine to do it. It's because they're getting us to self-report to them exactly who we are. It's brilliant from a tech company's point of view. It wasn't designed for us to connect to people. It wasn't designed for us to check in where we're going to eat dinner. No. It was designed so that it could acquire all of our information. And then so it could be sold to the highest bidder. And who could the highest bidder be? It could be a foreign agency or a foreign government. It could be data miners. It could be advertising companies that are going to want to advertise certain things to you. And then Facebook actually gets to get a double dose of the income, because then once they sell the information to the highest bidder, those highest bidders are then also going to be paying Facebook to advertise on Facebook to try to get you to spend your money on them. So Facebook is brilliant. Facebook is like double dipping. Not only are they double dipping in terms of the income that they themselves can collect, they are also servicing the alphabet agencies here in the United States, or the equivalent of an alphabet agency in your country. Because yes, our governments really do spy on us. And it is so diabolically brilliant because all of our activity online is tracked and then monetized. But we're not the ones that are monetizing on it. It's Facebook, both ways, with the selling of the information and the acquisition of the advertising monetization directed at us. And it is even diabolically brilliant further because it's all done with our consent, because we are signing up for and creating a profile on Facebook. It is brilliant. So, Mark Zuckerberg is a highly paid asset of the United States alphabet agencies. He is owned, he is operated, and he is completely loyal to those same agencies that own him. But at least he finally feels like he's been accepted and like he's part of something. So that concludes my energy read into Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, maybe have found it to be insightful or thought-provoking. I remind you to please take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And this is your reminder from now until the next video and every moment in between to stay in that high vibration.